Greetings and peace, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Tonight, we have the honor and privilege of being joined by our beloved Sheikh, Wahid Azal of the Fatimiyya Sufi order, who is also my murshid. He's been guiding us and educating us on these different educational topics that we've been having from parts 1 through 9. And now part 10 tonight, inshallah, he will educate us on the writings of the Bāb and Islamic theurgy and getting into all of the esoteric knowledge that we're all striving for in our lives, in our studies, and in our knowing. And I would encourage you all, please watch parts 1 through 9 and watch it more than once if you have to, with the information that's being conveyed. And it's archived on both of our YouTube channels, which I will put the link in the description below, because Sheikh Wahid Azal is teaching you the truth, and he's under attack by the agents of chaos, and everyone in the Fatimiyya are under attack by the agents of chaos. So we have to take a stand in this education. I will put all of the links in the description below, including the fundraiser for the art for his late wife, Roya, rest in peace. So without further ado, Sheikh Wahid Azal of the Fatimiyya Sufi order for part 10. Nur alaykum and Bismillah.
Wa alaykum Nur. I'll start here. Bismillah al-amna al-aqdas. In the name of God, the most impregnable, the most holy. Allahumma. Salli ala nuqtatil bayan wa man amana bihi bi'izzat wa jalal. Oh God, blessings be upon the point of the bayan and whosoever believes in him with exaltedness and majesty. Wa al'an Allahumma ahlil haba bil niqma wa qazab. And curse, oh God, the people of hot air with vengeance and wrath. We have to talk about a lot of things that have been transpiring over the last, I think, 2 weeks since we recorded part 9.
Yeah.
That have transpired. But rather than launch into that right away, I would like to talk a little bit about some of the doctrines, the esoteric doctrines of the Bāb. Of course, we won't be able to cover absolutely everything and all the angles because this is such a vast topic, and the writings of the Bāb, as I've mentioned before, reach well beyond 55 volumes. But where I should begin, that I kind of hinted at last time, is with the mystery of the Bismillah itself. And this is very important for the doctrine of the Bayān because, as I will soon talk about, one of the central doctrines of the Bayān itself is a concept that actually Henry Corbin also touches on in his writings. It's called the theophany of persons. That means that in the world of spatio-temporality, the Godhead reveals itself not just through, abstract things, but also reveals itself through people. So in this concept of the theophany of persons in the Bayān, the Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim manifests itself in the spatio-temporal world through human individuals. And in the doctrine of the Bayān, the 19 letters of the Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim symbolize from the Ba of the Bismillah to the final Mim of Rahim of Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, the Bāb and his letters of the living. And this concept in the doctrine of the Bayān is known as the first unity, Al-Wahid Al-Awwal. And the Wahid Al-Awwal is the Bāb with the 18 letters of the living. This doctrine becomes especially important because the number 19 holds the central significance in the Bayān itself, where everything is designed by this number, as it were, where everything returns to this number of 19. And even many contemporary people who have looked at some of the hidden mathematical configurations of the Quran itself keep coming back to this number 19, beginning with the 19 letters of the Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. But with the Bāb, this is central. The number 19, obviously, in the science of the letters, the Jaf, is the numerical value of the word Wahid, one, but it's also the numerical value of wujud, existence. So 19 is both wujud, existence, and Wahid, one existence, right? Now, something that you actually don't read in the Bayāni writings explicitly, but which I have written about, and I actually may publish the first chapter of this Persian commentary that I've been writing on the first chapter of the Persian Bayān. I unpack the mystery of the Bismillah al-Amna al-Aqdas, in the name of God, the most impregnable, the most holy, which is the Bismillah formula that the Bāb places at the head of both the Persian and Arabic Bayāns. Bismillah al-Amna al-Aqdas, like Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, holds 19 letters.
Mm.
And Bismillah al-Amna al-Aqdas, in the concept and in the idea of the theophany of persons, returns, as it were, to 5 individuals. Even though it is a phrase of 4 words, it returns to 5 individuals, 5 being the numerical value of the letter Ha in Arabic, and also the numerical value of Bab, the gate. So the Bism in the name of God, the most impregnable, the most holy, refers in the theophany of persons to the Bab himself. Allah, God, refers to who? Qurratul Ayn, the leading female disciple of the Bab. And Al-Amna, the most impregnable, refers to Mullah Hussein Bushri, the Bab al-Bab, the gate of the gate, the first to believe in the Bab, and the final letter of the living, Mullah Muhammad Ali Farahvashi Quddus. In the Bayān, as delineated by Ṣubḥ-i-Azal, the 2 greeting formulas of the Bayān, which is Allahu Akbar and Allahu Azam, each in turn return to Mullah Hussein and Quddus. Allahu Akbar, God is the most great, refers to Mullah Hussein, the first to believe, and Allahu Azam, God is the most mighty, refers to Quddus. And Al-Aqdas, the most holy, refers in the theophany of persons to none other than Ṣubḥ-i-Azal, the primal mirror of the Bayān. So Bism is the Bab, Allah is Tahir, Al-Amna is Quddus and Mullah Hussein, and Al-Aqdas is Ṣubḥ-i-Azal. This is my commentary, my ta'wil or tafsir of this benediction formula. The numerical value of Bismillah al-Amna al-Aqdas is 556, and 556 in the Abjad system is the numerical value of Shajari Amjad, the tree of supreme glory. This is my commentary on the mystery of the Bismillah al-Amna al-Aqdas. I will put up, maybe later today, maybe tomorrow, the first chapter of my ongoing commentary on the first chapter of the Persian Bayān. I haven't translated this into English, but I think, for those who are Persian readers, we're probably tuning in. I put this up for another reason, especially those Bahā'īs amongst them, to show me in the writings of their founder, Mīrzā Yaḥyā Nūrī, where, anywhere, in any of his writings did he offer any kind of commentary on these mysteries of the Bayān. They don't exist, he never did it, and therefore his claim to be the Sahib al-Bayān, the master of the Bayān, is false by this very reason, because just as the Bab revealed many of the Quranic mysteries through his writings and many of the mysteries of Hadith, Shia Hadith particularly, nowhere in the writings of Mīrzā Yaḥyā Nūrī do we find anything that remotely gives us commentary on the mysteries of the Bayani writings. So right there, the entire claim of the so-called Baha'u'llah, which is not his title, we Bayanis do not accept that title for Mīrzā Yaḥyā Nūrī, because that title, Baha'u'llah, the splendor or glory of God, rightfully belongs to the point of the Bayān, then Qurratul Ayn, then Mullah Hussein and Quddus, and then obviously Ṣubḥ-i-Azal and the future messianic figure of Man Yuzhurullah. But let us look at some of the symbolic elements of the Bayān. These are important because some of this symbolism also kind of carries over to Masonry. So if I turn away, I'm actually looking at my notes. Now, the meaning of the symbolism of the pentagram in the Bayān, which is the most important symbol in the Bayān that men wear. And the pentagram represents Huwa, he or it, which indicates the hidden ipseity, the hidden essence of God, whose numerical value is 11. There are 5 outer perspectives that represent the pentagram. So these 5 outer aspects represent the name Al-Zahir, the manifest, which each of these outer 5 perspectives representing one of the 5 companions of the cloaks, namely Muhammad, Ali, Fatima, Hassan, and Hussein, upon them be peace. Then there are 6 inner perspectives that are inside the pentagram, and this represents the letter Waw, the Arabic W, and the divine name Al-Batin, the hidden. In the Bayān, this symbol of the pentagram is related to men, And so men are referred to as the possessors of the pentagram, Ulu al-Hayakil, right? This is completely opposite to what we find in some of the neo-pagan teachings where the pentagram represents the goddess. But the pentagram represents man, the insan or the huwa, the ipseity, which is a masculine symbol. While to women is related the circle that encompasses the pentagram. So women are referred to in the Bayān as ulu al-dawa'ir, the possessors of the circles, which in the Bayān is the representation of the word Allah or God, which represents the infinity. The circle encompasses the pentacle, and as the representation of the word Allah, it represents this all-encompassing divine name, right? So the female encapsulates the male, as it were. Now, let's look at some of the laws and ordinances of the Bayān. I've covered this before, but I think it's not bad to recap some of this stuff. The essence of the Godhead is absolutely transcendent and beyond comprehension, yet there are infinite divine theophanies or manifestations of the primal will, the Mashiyatil Ula, which is the level of the creator proper. So the Godhead, what we refer to as Huwa, or is beyond even the attribute of the creator. It is completely transcendent. And the Mashiyatul Ula is representative of what in each successive period of hero history, whether the greater cycles of time or the dispensation, reveals itself, right, through various human temples, right? Even though, in principle, the theophany or manifestation of the primal will is eternal. It is the same. It is one, wahid, wujud. Now, even the concept of existence, wujud, is strictly not applicable to the Godhead in the teachings of the Bayān. Wujud, existence, properly applies to the primal will. And so it is the primal will who is the creator proper. As such, in principle, every theophany and dispensation arising therefrom represents a successive explanation into the depths of knowledge of reality, a sort of progressive collective initiation from one level to the next. So the primal will, in a sense, is the eternal initiator into the divine truths. And that is what the meaning of religion is, a collective initiation, as it were. The Bayān, it's as such, the Bayān itself is to be succeeded by the manifestation of He whom God shall make manifest, Man Yusufullah, the central doctrine of the Bayān. The ciphers given in the Persian and Arabic Bayān for this event are the divine names, the succoring aid, Qiyath, with a numerical value of 511, and the aid invoked, Mustaqat, which holds a numerical value of 2001. So the meaning of the day of resurrection, Yawm al-Qiyamah, right, that every Muslim is reading every day in the Quran, according to the Bayān, is the appearance in each age of the tree of reality, meaning the human pentagrammic talisman of the primal will and its manifestation. And again, let me reiterate, the plane of history moves within the trajectory of cycles of dispensation, adwar, and epicycle, or greater cycles, akwar, punctuated by these theophanic manifestations, where the period of the manifestation represents the dawn, tulu, with its disappearance being the dusk, ghurub. So that the period of the manifestation is the sun, and its disappearance is the moon. Within this trajectoral plane, everything occurs within the greater dialectic of either the reality of affirmation, ispat and light, nur, or that of negation, naf and fire, which is the meaning of the tahleel, la ilaha illallah. There's no God but God. Now, in the doctrine of the Bayān, and beginning in the first chapter, the first unity of the Bayān, Muhammad, Fatima, Ali, their sons, and the other 9 imams, plus the 4 gates to the 12th and hidden imam, returned to the life of the world symbolically, and were the first to believe in the Bāb as the Qa'im and Mahdi. These were the 18 individuals, the Bāb's first disciples, composing the 18 letters of the living, who together with the Bāb formed the N.Wahid Azal, the first unity of all things. Why all things? Because 19 times 19 is 361, and 361 in Arabic is the numerical value of kullu shay, all things.
Mm-hmm.
So we have in this a 19-month, 19-day loosely lunar calendar that in the Bayān replaces the Islamic Hijri one, 361 days in total, the numerical value of Kulli Shay, all things, without the calculation of any leap years or any intercalary days. It's just straight 361 days in the Bayāni calendar year. The names of the months are based on the famous dua as Sahar, dawn prayer of the fifth Sheikh Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam. Now, these months are splendor, Baha, majesty, Jalal, beauty, Jamal, might, Azama, light, Nur, mercy, Rahmah, words, Kalimat, names, Asma, tremendousness, Izzah, will, Mashiach, knowledge, Ilm, power, Qudra, speech, Qawl, questions, Masa'il, honor, Sharaf, sovereignty, Sultan, dominion, Mulk, and the final 19th month is known as supremacy or A'la. As mentioned in the last podcast, the form of the Islamic Salat, the ritual 5 times prayer, is abrogated Bayān and instead replaced by dhikr, the invocation of the names of God to specified numbers. The 30-day fasting during Ramadan is also abrogated and replaced with 19 days of fasting from sundown to sunset during the final Bayāni month of Allah, the Supreme. The 4 elements, air, fire, water, and earth, as well as the sun and the moon, are considered to be divine agents of purification. And so the trade and commercialization of the 4 elements is prohibited and made haram in the Bayān. Believers may face the sun at noon on Fridays as their qibla, the point of adoration, and the moon on the full moon. Otherwise, the qibla of the Bayān is the Iranian city of Shiraz, rather than Mecca. The practice of letterism, the science of the letters, of gematria, numerology, as well as the knowledge of the occult in general, meaning theurgy and making of talismans and amulets, is made into a religious obligation in the Bayān. Believers are to make talismans and amulets which they are to carry with them throughout their lives. For example, in Gate 16th or subsection of Unity 3 or chapter of the Persian Bayān, the Bāb states, quote, they should strive in the science of the letters and the correspondences of the numbers with the names of God and the correspondence of similar things and the correspondence of similar works in their context, because permission has been granted for any person to arrange the ordering of the Bayān in whatsoever manner that appears sweetest. For if it appears in 1,000 forms, yet all of it returns to the soul of the Bayān, unquote. In the Bayān, women and men are deemed equal, but with different complementary functions. Yet under the legal philosophy of the Bayān, rather than that of Islam, men and women are accorded the same equal rights, whether in marriage, inheritance, employment, social duties, etc. Women also enjoy exemptions, such as the duty for pilgrimage that men do not. So, and also there is no mandatory veiling for women in the Bayān. Physical violence against other believers in the Bayān is categorically prohibited. Physical violence and abuse against children is strictly prohibited and considered a supreme sin. Abuse of animals and burdening them is prohibited. The highest sin in the Bayān is considered to be driving someone out of their home or place of residence and making them homeless. So the creation of homelessness, whether by individuals or by systems, is considered Masiyat al-Kubra, the supreme sin. The Islamic Abrahamic law of punishing adulterers with death is abolished in the Bayān. Flatulence, doubt, shak, and human or animal hair, as in Islam, does not invalidate prayer and worship. Nor semen, as in Judaism and Islam, is not considered impure in the Bayān. Interestingly enough, the question of male circumcision is left open-ended and not mandatory, nor is the consumption of pork addressed. However, alcohol remains haram as in Islam, as is the consumption of onions and garlic. Marriage with believers is advised, and divorce is possible following the 19 Bayāni months after separation. Recommendation that believers remarry within 90 to 95 days after death of a spouse. The forced mutilation of any human being, even in times of war, is strictly prohibited and considered haram in the Bayān, like, for example, the cutting of anyone's limbs or beheadings and the like. Aggressive methods of open proselytization are prohibited and are made haram in the Bayān. Instead, an initiatic method of proselytization is pursued. Jihad, or holy war, and the carrying of weapons is allowed in the Bayān, but is governed by strict rules and circumstances which are contingent on the existence of a Bayāni state and the word of either the mirrors of the Bayān or the word of the messianic figure of he whom God shall make manifest. Encouragement of technological advance is paramount in the Bayān as long as it does not become a spiritual veil. So Bayān does not reject science at all. It seeks the harmonization of religion and science. As long as science is not made into an ideology and weaponized against spirituality, the sky and the heavens are the limit as far as the Bayān is concerned. The destruction of books is a sin and prohibited. This is something that the mullahs constantly harp on about, accusing the Bayān of encouraging the destruction of books. In fact, the Bayān categorically prohibits and makes haram the destruction of books. However, per the doctrine of progressive theophanies and each successive theophanic revelation, scriptures of previous religious dispensations should cease from exercising any pivotal function. In other words, the Bible, the Quran, etc., are abrogated and should not therefore be considered the final word on anything, since they have, per the doctrine of the Bayān, been superseded by the Bayān itself, which in turn will be succeeded by the book of he whom God shall make manifest, whose own scripture will eventually be superseded as well, ad nauseam. Theoretically, the Bayān leaves open the possibility for the existence of homosexual believers, as well as the future advent of female manifestations of divinity, prophet messengers or divine lawgivers or avatars in the Abrahamic line. So that's some of the basic aspects of the doctrines of the Bayān, of the Persian Bayān. Now, one of the more theurgic, or actually the completely theurgic books of the Bāb that was written contemporaneously with the Bayān is a book called the Book of the Names of All Things. Kitab Asma al-Kulli Shay. Sometimes it's referred to as the commentary on the names, Tafsir Asma, or the four grades, Shahar Sha'an. This is a massive and complex work of invocatory and doxological depth devoted to the secret of 361 names of God, to which each true believer becomes a theophanic instantiation and manifestation. And what scholar Stephen Lambden has characterized as, quote, the messianic urgency around, which is basically revolving around the messianic urgency around the appearance of he whom God shall make manifest, unquote. These 361 names are also held to be the divine names instantiating each of the days, each single day of the 19 times 19, 361 Bayāni calendar. And so are programmatic of a prayer and invocation cycle during each day of the 361-day year. And I'm going to read you these names, first in their Arabic and then in the translation. So I'm going to read all of these names, 361 names in Arabic, and then I'll give the translation. So, and I'll do it as a zikr. So as a zikr, we will have the vocative ya, o. So, Ya Alahu, Ya Wahidu, Ya Ahad, Ya Hayyu, Ya Qawimu, Ya Bahi, Ya Jalalu, Ya Azizu, Ya Jamilu, Ya Azalu, Ya Nawiru, Ya Qadamu, Ya Kamalu, Ya Qadamu, Ya Hakimu, Ya Qadiru, Ya Alamu, Ya Salatu, Ya Maliku, Ya Faridu, Ya Samidu, Ya Majidu, Ya Manu, Ya Qadisu, Ya Adilu, Ya Fazilu, Ya Kasiru, Ya Aliyu, Ya Rafi'u, Ya Karamu, Ya Jawadu, Ya Raghabu, Ya Rahimu, Ya Wahibu, Ya Batinu, Ya Zahiru, Ya Qahiru, Ya Shadidu, Ya Batishu, Ya Sami'u, Ya Bada'u, Ya Basiru, Ya Naziru, Ya Nasiru, Ya Watiru, Ya Latifu, Ya Khabiru, Ya Abidu, Ya Halimu, Ya Rabibu, Ya Habibu, Ya Haqiqu, Ya Waliyu, Ya Qafiru, Ya Atiyu, Ya Qabilu, Ya Dafiru, Ya Khalisu, Ya Fatihu, Ya Raziqu, Ya Khalisu, Ya Warisu, Ya Dhakiru, Ya Hasanu, Ya Nazilu, Ya Yasiru, Ya Sara'u, Ya Sadidu, Ya Haninu, Ya Maninu, Ya Barahu, Ya Dayanu, Ya Raziu, Ya Sabahu, Ya Awinu, Ya Jazilu, Ya Fakhiru, Ya Waqiyu, Ya Fasilu, Ya Fariqu, Ya Qaziyu, Ya Nafi'u, Ya Jami'u, Ya Shafi'u, Ya Shafi'u, Ya Farahu, Ya Raji'u, Ya Sahibu, Ya Bahiju, Ya Dalilu, Ya Qaniyu, Ya Hadiyu, Ya Qalibu, Ya Talibu, Ya Nafisu, Ya Kafiyu, Ya Waqilu, Ya Dayalu, Ya Tarizu, Ya Nabilu, Ya Sarikhu, Ya Aminu, Ya Ra'ifu, Ya Atifu, Ya Kawinu, Ya Bayanu, Ya Laqinu, Ya Hawinu, Ya Thaniyu, Ya Zayanu, Ya Alinu, Ya Sariru, Ya Qasimu, Ya Bariru, Ya Sadiqu, Ya Dawamu, Ya Khafiyu, Ya Maliyu, Ya Badiyu, Ya Awidu, Ya Qawiyu, Ya Basitu, Ya Qabizu, Ya Balaku, Ya Mahiyu, Ya Qalibu, Ya Nafizu, Ya Sabitu, Ya Baru, Ya Sabaru, Ya Sabiru, Ya Tahiru, Ya Zamiru, Ya Rashidu, Ya Rasidu, Ya Amidu, Ya Shahidu, Ya Bashiru, Ya Nazaru, Ya Dhakiru, Ya Kanizu, Ya Asimu, Ya Qasimu, Ya Salimu, Ya Hafizu, Ya Shakiru, Ya Zariru, Ya Akhidu, Ya Ba'idu, Ya Sharifu, Ya Kafiyu, Ya Dayu, Ya Rahibu, Ya Qasitu, Ya Fatiru, Ya Sakhiru, Ya Hasibu, Ya Jabiru, Ya Mahilu, Ya Rasilu, Ya Ra'iyu, Ya Mawitu, Ya Wadidu, Ya Shafiqu, Ya Waqifu, Ya Qaliyu, Ya Ra'iyu, Ya Falabu, Ya Ratiqu, Ya Fatiqu, Ya Samiqu, Ya Samiq, Sabiqu, Ya Ratihu, Ya Sawiyu, Ya Asifu, Ya Naghamu, Ya Hayatu, Ya Maghatu, Ya Lahimu, Ya Arifu, Ya Wasifu, Ya Na'itu, Ya Zari'u, Ya Tari'u, Ya Azalu, Ya Kabiru, Ya Bazafu, Ya Zaminu, Ya Amiru, Ya Nahiyu, Ya Qasitu, Ya Sarahu, Ya Na'imu, Ya Qaniyu, Ya Najiyu, Ya Sababu, Ya Raghabu, Ya Aghabu, Ya Ratibu, Ya Nazimu, Ya Katibu, Ya Dahibu, Ya Madibu, Ya Zalilu, Ya Banilu, Ya Tawabu, Ya Amiru, Ya Jadidu, Ya Hariku, Ya Sakinu, Ya Nabiyu, Ya Zaribu, Ya Khariju, Ya Dakhalu, Ya Masiku, Ya Jaziu, Ya Waqidu, Ya Qarisu, Ya Abibu, Ya Baliyu, Ya Natiku, Ya Fatinu, Ya Saqiyu, Ya Waqiyu, Ya Sakiyu, Ya Zayidu, Ya Shailu, Ya Ajilu, Ya Labisu, Ya Qamisu, Ya Safitu, Ya Halilu, Ya Rahimu, Ya Adhinu, Ya Ayadu, Ya Kafifu, Ya Wahiyu, Ya Kashifu, Ya Azabu, Ya Haliku, Ya Jazabu, Ya Fayazu, Ya Kalamu, Ya Hashiru, Ya Nashiru, Ya Ba'isu, Ya Arizu, Ya Khatamu, Ya Qasisu, Ya Sababu, Ya Rakibu, Ya Qabalu, Ya Tayabu, Ya Balaru, Ya Dariku, Ya Alifu, Ya Nasa'u, Ya Nafiku, Ya Sababu, Ya Tabaru, Ya Waliju, Ya Wasiqu, Ya Radidu, Ya Farizu, Ya Sabatu, Ya Layanu, Ya Makiru, Ya Fariqu, Ya Asilu, Ya Bariku, Ya Khalifu, Ya Damiru, Ya Harizu, Ya Wa'idu, Ya Rabitu, Ya Radariju, Ya Wasi'u, Ya Bayiru, Ya Qayasu, Ya Bayazu, Ya Nakisu, Ya Nabizu, Ya Nashidu, Ya Fasahu, Ya Safahu, Ya Wasalu, Ya Atiqu, Ya Ratalu, Ya Zadadu, Ya Mahisu, Ya Mahiqu, Ya Haziyu, Ya Tariku, Ya Qafiyu, Ya Nasikhu, Ya Nasiyu, Ya Atiyu, Ya Tamimu, Ya Kasiyu, Ya Zayaku, Ya Tawisu, Ya Azaku, Ya Qawisu, Ya Sazaju, Ya Satiru, Ya Satiru, Ya Qatilu, Ya Raji'u, Ya Zahiqu, Ya Raghamu, Ya Ajilu, Ya Fa'ilu, Ya Khasifu, Ya Saliku, Ya Hafifu, Ya Fajiru, Ya Lazamu, Ya Naqisu, Ya Shari'u, Ya Kabiru, Ya Dawiru, Ya Tawiru, Ya Salifu, Ya Dhari'u, Ya Matiru, Ya Wa'izu, Ya Ayanu, Ya Nasifu, Ya Fahimu, Ya Tawiyu, Ya Qariru, Ya Tarifu, Ya Rajiyu, Ya Hadisu, Ya Jayayu, Ya Sayiru, Ya Waziru, Ya Bawiyu, Ya Hayafu, Ya Batiru, Ya Safiyu, Ya Jabiru, Ya Shari'u, Ya Wabiku, Ya Sami'u, Ya Shari'u, Ya Zawaju, Ya Masisu, Ya Asiru, Ya Taqanu, Ya Sahitu, Ya Khayiru, Ya Baramu, Ya Hatamu, Ya Namiyu, Ya Hawizu, Ya Farishu, Ya Aletu, Ya Fa'iyu, Ya Bariyu, Ya Wahiyu. Haq. Now, as we see, all of these 361 names are in the form of the fa'il, in the third form of the Arabic verbal conjugation. So let me now give you the translation of all of these 361 names, beginning with the vocative O. So these names are O Supreme Godhead, O One Unity, O Unique Single, O Life Giver, O Arisen, O Splendifier, O Majestifyer, O Tremendifier, O Beautifier, O Mightifier, O Light Giver, O Ancientifier, O Perfect, O Proximate, O Judge, O Capably Powerful, O Knower, O Suzerain, O Sovereign, O Alone, O One Everlasting, O Conferrer of Glory, O Preventer, O Sanctifier, O Just, O excellent, O multiplier, O high, O elevator, O munificentifier, O beneficentifier, O watcher, O mercifier, O bestower, O hidden, O manifest, O victorious, O intense, O valorous force, O hearer, O novelizer, O seer, O observer, O triumphant, O solitary, O subtilizer, O informer, O commencer, O forbearant, O maker of lords, O conferrer of love, O veridicalizer, O helper, O forgiver, O vouchsafer, O consenter, O defender, O unsullied, O opener, O provider, O creator, O inheritor, O invoker, O charmer, O revealer, O facilitator, O quickener, O discharger, O gracious, O beneficent, O momenticizer, O requitter, O satisfier, O glorifier, O succorer, O plentifier, O honorer, O loyal, O distinguisher, O differentiator, O adjudicator, O benefactor, O compriser, O healer, O intercessor, O rejoicer, O pleaser, O possessor, O exhilarator, O establisher of reasoning proofs, O enricher, O guide, O heart molder, O reclaimer, O provider of the soul's breath, O guarantor, O empowering agent, O orderer, O ornamentalizer, O ennobler, O exclaimer, O faithful, O benevolent, O favorer, O entifier, O clarifier, O instructor, O defending mortar, O laudifier, O embellisher, O informer, O mystifier, O divider, O justifier, O sincere, O perpetuator, O concealer, O plentiful support, O originator, O reverter, O strengthener, O expander, O contractor, O attainer, O restorer, O predominator, O penetrator, O immutable, O initiator, O forgiver, O patient, O pure, O conscious giving secretor, O judicious guide, O descrier, O purposer, O witness, O enunciator, O consecrator, O supplier, O treasure-making miner, O immaculatizer, O exterminator, O unscathed, O protector, O giver of thanks, O harmer, O taker, O thrusting distance, O dignifier, O sufficient, O summoner, O dreaded, O intender, O cosmocrator, O derider, O reckoner, O compeller, O appointer, O sender, O discerner, O life extirpator, O giver of devotion, O endearer, O aider, O guarding preserver, O patron, O severer, O mender, O unseamer, O proceeder, O towerer, O gratifier, O equalizer, O excuser, O imprecator, O safeguarder, O abhorrer, O inspirer, O noeticizer, O attributor, O qualifier, O cultivator, O particularizer, O pre-eternalizer, O bestower of greatness, O conferrer of pomp, O warrantor, O commander, O inhibitor, O equator, O unlocker, O bountifier, O appropriator, O deliverer, O occasioner, O desirer, O succeeder, O arranger, O systematizer, O author, O betaker, O sustainer, O shader, O builder, O giver of repentance, O conferrer of time spans, O renewer, O mover, O static, O announcer, O striker, O outsider, O insider, O Caesar, O recompenser, O combuster, O instiller, O fatherer, O disintegrator, O speaker, O captivator, O quencher, O subsister, O chaste, O exceeder, O particularizer, O allotter, O clother, O enrober, O indignant, O legitimizer, O forbidder, O permitter, O aider, O abstainer, O revealer, O unveiler, O tormentor, O destroyer, O attractor, O emanator, O interlocutor, O gatherer, O diffuser, O causer, O remonstrator, O sealer, O narrator, O molder, O mounter, O investor, O delighter, O crystallizer, O aware, O compiler, O remover, O inflator, O plenitude, O impressor, O interposer, O harmonizer, O rebutter, O impeller, O collapser, O lenient, O schemer, O vacator, O demoter, O enduer, O dissenter, O devastator, O talismanic fortifier, O assurer, O connector, O calibrator of the levels, O positioner, O centering wellspringer, O assisting reliever, O vindicator, O inverter, O relinquisher, O supplicator, O widener, O remitter, O linking relator, O shoulderer, O elegant psalmodizer, O increaser, O testing purifier, O eradicator, O despiser, O discontinuer, O witherer, O abrogator, O oblivionator, O deriver, O completer, O attire, O diverger, O effacer, O loosener, O immerser, O unsullied simplifier, O drawer of the line, O enshrouder, O slayer, O reviewer, O annihilator, O numberer, O hastener, O actor, O disgracer, O pursuer, O encloser, O dawning riser, O necessitator, O demolisher, O expounder, O apocryphier, O aeonifier, O evolver, O advancer, O measurer, O pourer, O preacher, O comforter, O pulverizer, O understander, O hunger maker, O decider, O giver of affluence, O giver of hope, O inventor, O adjoiner, O remainder, O deputizer, O returner, O undiverger, O separator, O limpid, O gladdener, O legislator, O ruiner, O namer, O investor, O coupler, O toucher, O tracer, O perfecter, O prohibitor, O charitable, O displeaser, O prescriber, O resurgent, O owner, O furnisher, O instrumentalizer, O returning homecomer, O innovator, and the final 361 name is O overseer. Now, which one of your shows have you had where someone has read a theurgic, had a theurgic session like this, where we have read
my
through
goodness,
the original and
was
361 divine names of God. I will give gladly these names, both in Arabic and my translation of them, to anyone who asks me for them. I have used these names on a daily basis as a zikr, and it's great, especially during Maghrib time, where you sit down and you just recite these names, because it takes you through so many different realities to contemplate as a meditation of 361 names. It is something, it really, really takes you into another world. I use this also sometimes before I actually read the Bab himself. I read these 361 names, and then I sit down and completely focus on reading a piece of text from the Bab himself. So anyone who wants a copy of this, they're welcome to it. Now, let me talk a little bit about the Book of the Five Grace. This is one of the final works of the Bab, written in the final few months of his life. It's a massive work. The current lithograph edition of this work that was published by the Bayān community in the late 1940s in Iran is well over 400 pages long in its lithograph. This was written between the 19th of March to the 4th of April, 1850. So only about 3-4 months out from his execution and martyrdom in Tabriz. This is a work very similar to the Book of the Names of All Things, but with more specific thematic content. There are 17 chapters in total, divided into 5 specific sections. Each of the 5 modes of the Bab's writing are present in here, which are: number 1, ayat, Arabic verses and imitations of the Quran; number 2, munajat, prayers, supplications, and doxologies; number 3, khutbah, or sermons; number 4, tafsir, commentary; and number 5, Farsi, or Persian. These 17 chapters each are addressed to 16 specific individuals among the Bab's leading disciples. Among them, Mīrzā Yaḥyā Azal and Qurratul Ayn was deemed the return of Fatima, with the first chapter devoted to the messianic figure of he whom God shall make manifest. Defective and incomplete manuscripts are the norm with this work, but 3 of the full chapters seem to be missing. An incomplete lithograph edition was published by the Iranian Bayān community in Iran during the late 1940s, early 1950s. Now I'm going to read just the commencement of the first few lines of the first chapter, which is devoted to He whom God shall manifest, first in the Arabic and then in my translation. This is where the Bāb permutates the Arabic grammar and the names of God in ways that just are breaking all of the rules of grammar. So it begins as Bismillahil alahil alah. Innani ana Allah la ilaha illa ana al alahil alah. Bismillah al alahil alah. Billahi Allah al alahil alah. Bismillah al mu'allih Allah la ilaha illa huwa al alahil alah. Allah la ilaha illa huwa al mu'allih. Allah la ilaha illa huwa al mutalla al ulhad. Allah la ilaha illa huwa al muta'alli al mutal. وَلِلَّهِ إِلَيْهِ أُلْحَانِ السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَّا وَاللَّهُ آلُهُ إِلَيْهِ وَلِلَّهِ إِلَيْهِ أُلْحَانِ السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَّا وَاللَّهُ أُلْحَانِ مُتَعَلِّ مُتَعَالٍ وَلِلَّهِ مَلِيكِ السُّلْطَانَ أُلُوهِيَّةٌ فِي السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَّا وَاللَّهُ مُتَعَلِّ مُتَعَالٍ قل الله أله فوق كل ذي الله لن يقدر أن يمتحن مليك السلطان إله من أحد لا في السماوات ولا في الأرض وما بينهما إنه كان إلها عليها قل الله أله فوق كل ذي الله لن يقدر أن يمتحن إليه ألحان إله من أحد لا في السماوات والأرض وما بينهما إنه كان عليها سبحانك اللهم إنك أنت الألحان السماوات والأرض وما بينهما وتوتين الألوهية من تشاء وتعز عنها من تشاء وترفع من تشاء وتنزل من تشاء وتنسل من تشاء وتخذل من تشاء وتعزل من تشاء وتنزل من تشاء وتقين من تشاء وتفرغ من تشاء في قبضتك ملكوت كل شيء تخلق ما تشاء بأمرك إنك كنت على كل شيء قدير. The translation. In the name of God, the supremely divine, the uttermost deific. Verily I am God. No God is there besides me, the supremely divine, the uttermost deific. In the name of God, the supremely divine, the uttermost deific. In the name of God, the divinized, God, no other God is there except it, the supremely divine, the uttermost deific. God, no other God is there except it, the divinized. God, no other God is there except it, the divinity engendering of the twin divinities. God, no other God is there except it, the divinity engendering of the divinity engendered. Unto God, unto it are these dual divinities of the heavens and the earth and what is between them. And God is a dualitudinal divinity, supremely divine in its deific divinity. And unto God belongs the ruling sovereignty of its supreme godhood in the heavens and the earth and what is between them. And God is a divinity especially deiticized, a divinity engendering of the divinity deified. Say, God is a Godhead beyond every possessor of divine supremacy. It would be impossible for anyone to enumerate the sovereign rulership of its divine supremacy, either in the heavens or in the earth or what is between them. Verily, it is a deity supreme, superlatively divine, divinely incomparable. Say, God is a Godhead beyond all that which possesses divine supremacy. It would be impossible for anyone to enumerate its deific dualitudinal divine supremacy, either in the heavens or in the earth or what is between them. Verily, it is a supreme deity, divinely superlative, incomparably divine. Glorified art thou, my God. Verily, thou art the dualitudinal deity of the heavens and the earth and what is between them. Thou givest the divinity to whom thou will, and taketh it away from whomsoever thou will. And thou elevateth whomsoever thou wilt, and maketh to fall whomsoever thou wilt. Thou maketh victorious whomsoever thou wilt, and thou disappointeth whomsoever thou wilt. Thou tremendifieth with power whomsoever thou wilt, and maketh to descend whomsoever thou wilt. And thou enricheth whomsoever thou wilt, and thou impoverished whomsoever thou wilt. In thy grasp is the dominion of all things. Thou created what thou hast willed by thy cause command. Verily thou art powerful over all things. And that was from the beginning, the introductory section of the book, the first chapter of the book of the names of all things. Now, we will talk about this next thing that I'm going to talk about, I think, in a separate podcast, but I will mention it before we touch on some contemporary events. And I want to talk about Ṣubḥ-i-Azal. Now, in his final year, that is the years 1849 and 1850, as it was becoming increasingly clear that his own days were numbered, the textual evidence demonstrates irrefutably the Bāb appointed as his successor the young 19-year-old and a son of a former Qajar courtier and court calligrapher, Mīrzā Yaḥyā Nūrī Ṣubḥ-i-Azal, to whom he bestowed such lofty titles as the name of God, the pre-eternal, Ismullah al-Azal, the dawn of pre-eternity, Ṣubḥ-i-Azal, the fruit of pre-eternity, Thamara Azaliyah, the name of God, the one, Ismullah al-Wahid, to name just a few. As all of these early historiographies and texts visibly show, in the Bāb's estimation, Mīrzā Yaḥyā Nūrī Ṣubḥ-i-Azal was considered by him to be the possessor of a minor manifestation, Sahib Zuhur Juz'i, in tandem with the Bāb's universal one. While in one epistle also asserting his spiritual identity with Ṣubḥ-i-Azal and Ṣubḥ-i-Azal's with him, in this vein, the Bāb elevated and suppositioned Ṣubḥ-i-Azal as his mirror, Mir'at, reflecting the sun of reality, Shams al-Haqiqat, which is to say the Bāb himself. In various epistles, he says to Ṣubḥ-i-Azal, thou art I am thou, anta, ana wa ana anta, he and I, huwa wa ana, he and thou, huwa wa anta, God and I am God and thou art God, Allah wa ana Allah wa anta Allah. Elsewhere he says, quote, this is a book from God, the protector, the peerless, unto God, the protector, the peerless. This is a book from Ali before the Nabi, meaning the Bāb himself, the remembrance to the worlds, unto he whose name is equivalent to the name of the one, the remembrance of the worlds. O name of the one, Ya Ism al-Wahid, protect that which has been revealed in the Bayān and command by it, for verily thou art the mighty way of truth. Elsewhere, quote, he says to him, O name of the pre-eternal, Ya Ism al-Azal, verily I testify that there is no other God besides me, the tremendous, the beloved, al-Aziz al-Mahbub. Then I testify that there is no other God besides thee, the protector, the peerless, al-Muhayyim al-Qayyum. God created all that which is created from a firstness before all firstness to it, and all things it shall create from a lastness without a lastness to it, in order to manifest its own logos self. When thou art cut off from this throne, meaning the Bāb, recite the versical signs that God causes to be inspired into your heart. Whosoever attains the presence of the throne of your lordship has attained to the presence of God. Proclaim the cause of thy Lord unto the worlds. Call them unto that which has been revealed in the Bayān through the perspicuous paths of lofty might. And if God manifests one like thee, he is accounted by God as the one singular inheritor of the cause. And if God manifests grandeur in thy days, manifest the eighth path, meaning the remaining chapters of the Bayān, unquote. So this is basically, in a summary, during these last two podcasts, the doctrines of the Bāb in a nutshell. Obviously, there's so much more that I can talk about. We're talking, like I said, a corpus of writings, all of them, one more esoteric than the next, that runs over 55 volumes in total, all written within a 6-year period. I don't know of any figure in the 1400 years Hijra calendar of Islam, any of the great mystics that accomplished something like that at such a young age, that in a 6-year period, they managed to write over 55 volumes of works. This was something of a higher order of reality, what was going on. And it was such a unbelievable threat to the establishment of the Shia clerics, as well as the Qajar state, that they had in their eyes, saw no choice but to eradicate this movement. And so the pogrom that the state and clergy unleashed on the Babis especially from 1848 to 1852, 2 years after the Bab's martyrdom, was something on a scale that we have not witnessed, given the scale of the 19th century at the time. This was, even like I mentioned in the last podcast, European consular dispatches and reports report a brutality and a bloodletting of unbelievable proportions. And this has resonated, the challenge that the Bab posed to the ruling clerical establishment and the Qajar state at the time was of such magnitude that in many ways, everything that has come after it was a footnote to the Bab. Everything that the Shia clergy especially have done, for example, in institutionalizing, their own hierarchy, is a response to the challenge that the Bab and also before Sheikh Ahmed Azal posed to their establishment. And what the Bab unleashed in Iran eventually culminated in the constitutional revolution that toppled the Qajar monarchy, a revolution that is incomplete in many ways because the aim of that revolution was not only to topple the Qajar monarchy and dynasty, but also to cut to size permanently the unchecked power of the ruling mullahs and the clerics of the seminary. Inshallah, that day will come where these turbans will finally be cut to size and put in their place permanently, inshallah. Now, you should comment a little more, and then now we should talk a little bit about recent events.
Oh, definitely. I'm just in awe, Sheikh, especially when you read all of the names. I closed my eyes for a bit and I saw this beautiful burst of green light that was circulating around, and it definitely took me to a different reality. It brought me so much peace, and I'm grateful to learn the teachings of the Bayān and to realize with everything you pointed out that why is it such a threat to these people in power, the Bayāni, the Bābīs, the teachings of the Bab, and why is it so important that this information is suppressed, it's not given its due credit, and why you have been seen as a threat by these forces with your teachings and basically reviving this movement with the Fatimiyya Sufi order. And it's essential, and I repeat this, it is very essential to the audience that's listening that all of the information that Sheikh Wahid Azal has given us, it's a valuable digital library. Just like those 50 volumes that were seen as a threat to those clerics, these podcasts from 1 through 10, and just look at the coincidence that the 10th podcast in the numerology point of view, we're given these teachings and why it's important to take heed to the Bayāni teachings, and eventually down the road, all of the works will be translated from Persian to English, so it will be easily accessible for all of us, inshallah. I hope I see that day where a lot of these works of the Bab are translated with the proper translation and given its due justice. So those that are trying to learn about the Bayān, they get the true authentic source. And I hope in my lifetime I see that, and I will assist Sheikh Wahid Azal in any way I can to keep the teachings of the Bab alive and the Bayānis going through all of its threats that the enemy tried to put on it. And it's important what he pointed out with the Islamic Theurgy, that in these teachings, especially the numerical value and some rules, especially if you read in the Holy Quran, Surah Baqarah, in the last two verses, it tells you that we make no distinction between any messengers. So it tells you that this tradition of Abrahamic avatars and prophets and messengers and guides, it will be continuous. And that's only for those that have the esoteric knowledge of the Holy Quran, especially the last two verses of the Surah Baqarah. And it tells you exactly the truth of the Bayāni movement. And I thank you, Sheikh. This is absolutely beautiful.
You're very welcome. Let me give us sort of a Sufi-esque social analysis of why the Bab is such a threat. In Sufism, we believe the greatest veil is the nafs, the ego.
Yes.
Right? Now, whether we're talking about religious political realities or even secular political realities today, one thing that is a constant in human society is an attachment to identity, one's identity. Right now, we're seeing this in very bizarre ways, with the identity politics that is ravaging the left and most of the West.
Yeah.
Now, what someone like the Bab poses to these establishments is a threat to their identity, right? But the goal of the human journey is to transcend identity, to break that ego. So if you're attached to your gayness, if you're attached to your femininity, or if you're attached to your blackness, your whiteness, etc., all of these various things, that's a veil. That doesn't mean, we're not saying that issues of injustice and whatnot should not be advocated for. In fact, the Bayān is foremost to say that you have to go all out and advocate for justice and the rights of people. But when you're attached to this identity and then you weaponize that identity against everything else, then you're existing in a veil.
Mhm.
And institutions and corporate organizations and states and whatnot and collectives abide in a form of I would say, a toxic, almost a demonic form of identity that they refuse to break. It is like Iblis refusing to bow to Adam. So when someone like the Bāb appears in a country like Iran amongst these powerful clergy and proclaims himself to be the Mahdi and the 12th Imam returned, this is a complete challenge to the core identity of these institutions completely, right?
Yes.
Especially like I mentioned, what the Bāb represents in his writings is as if the Quran itself has exploded out of its pages and is articulating everything that came before it through the language of the Quran and the mouthpiece of the Bāb. And so what does that say to these clergies that have amassed these libraries of books and disputes and arguments and whatnot for over 1,200 years, many of them completely useless? It means that everything that you are, your power, your privilege, everything is zero, meaningless, go away, right? And this not only holds true for the Shiite clerics of Iran, it also holds especially true today for the Bahā'ís, who have constructed a fake organization or a fake creed and are desperately clinging to this with all life, lest it explode. So they are also abiding this demonic egregore and this demonic reality where they refuse, like at least to bow before Adam. And this is what, in many ways, we are experiencing in a literal form with these people that are harassing us. Those two Baha'is that came earlier in the week tried to intimidate you, and Browne beat you into silence. Another brother, who's a Mason and also a Fatimi member, who had one of his accounts hacked by these people. The defamation campaign that has been going on for almost 20 years now against myself and my person, and the suspicious passing of my wife Roya. All of these are a continuous thing that is coming from the same organization, namely the Baha'is, who have also hidden behind various actors to try to silence and suppress this with dear life. Why? Because as another brother today said to me in Telegram, if enough people even had a smattering of an idea of what the Bāb was saying and what the Bayān is about, and if they even read Denis MacEoin's book, for example, The Messiah of Shiraz, which is a very good book, then the party is over, right? That means that the Baha'ism as a creed will be seen for the illegitimate creed that it is, right? Then people will see for themselves that one of the greatest narcissists that walked on the face of the earth from the point of view of the Bayanis was none other than the founder of Baha'ism. And that this is projected into his followers, who refuse to disclose all of these texts in their possession, who refuse to do proper, complete, and faithful translation of the complete works of the Bāb, who, despite all the lip service that they pay and the fact that they're collecting all these tourism shekels in occupied Palestine from people to come to this Haifa Disneyland religious theme park that they constructed on Mount Carmel, all of this goes away tomorrow. But what I'm finding very interesting is that there are Israeli Jews that are beginning, that this story resonates with. I mean, I've had a couple of them in the last week approach me, whether on Facebook, on Reddit, or elsewhere, who are looking at this entire configuration in utter awe. Like, how did we not know about this? All these shrines or complexes are right there where we live, yet we didn't know anything about any of this stuff, right? All we have been getting was the sanitized, cookie cutter, cereal box version that they have been, giving us over there, whether on the internet or whether through the book of this very dishonest scholar, Moshe Sharon, or in Hebrew. It's the only book in Hebrew on Baha'ism, or through them going to these shrine complexes and the standard propaganda lines that these tourist guides give to them when they are they're sightseeing at this Haifa Disneyland. So, why is this going on against us? Why is this going on against the Fatimiyya Sufi order? Because we represent, like the Bab represented and challenged the ruling establishment of Islam in that way. We represent a challenge to the Baha'i establishment and those were around them, the whole corporate capitalist, shaitan.
I mean,
That's
that explains why they keep shutting down your Facebook account and why this one brother got hacked and all of us are getting messaged and attacked and accounts are being hacked. It explains it all.
Yeah, it absolutely explains it all, because we are a threat to their business. We're a threat to their income. We're a threat to their revenue. We're a threat to the continued fraud that they have perpetrated upon humanity since the 1860s. I should mention that I got a 29-day ban from Facebook yesterday on the most ludicrous reasons. I've made a GoFundMe for Roya because I want to compile all of her artwork into a book with commentary by myself and also some of her blog posts. And this book is to be dedicated to Roya's two children, Inji and Nuria. And immediately, and GoFundMe, let's remember, is actually partially owned by Facebook itself. But as soon as I put this link, immediately, for absolutely no reason, they say it violates their community standards of nudity and sexual content. Now, anybody who looks at this, in fact, I should give you a link to the blog as well, where I put this entire post. Anybody who looks at this would just like go, what? Where's this? There's not, how can Facebook even remotely construe this as being a violation of their community standards on nudity and sexual content? There's nothing there.
That didn't make sense to me. And what I will do is, for the audience that's listening, I will put the GoFundMe link in the description below. And any of you that are able to donate, please donate and help make Sheikh's dream a reality. For Roya, rest in peace, and her two children, of dedicating this work. I mean, this is a artwork. How is it under any sexual content? Which shows you that Sheikh Wahid Azal is under attack. This is not the first time his Facebook gets banned every now and then, and they try to silence him.
Well, it also tells you who was behind the murder of my wife. Roya, of blessed memory, and myself, in the last year of her life, besides fighting off these Russian fascists and trolls, etc., we're diligently working in bringing to light, in exposing the Baha'i organizations and its activities in Germany. These people were actually had their recognition status as a religious organization revoked in 1982, following the publication of a book by a Swiss Italian gentleman by the name of Francesco Ficicchia. This book made quite a stir. There were complaints about the Baha'i organization as a result of this book by the Council of Protestant Churches in Germany, West Germany at the time, and an administrative court in Hanover in 1982, as a result of these complaints, revoked the Baha'is' recognition status. And they were in a limbo land for over 20, 30 years in Germany because of this. Until around 2014, they had this status reestablished by court in Stuttgart this time. Roya got into contact with this court, and there's a paper trail of correspondences between this court and Roya, where Roya basically was telling these people that the reasons in which the Baha'is had their status reinstated were not in accord with the decision that had been made by that Hanover court in 1982. So we wanted information as to on what basis these people who had up to that time been operating as an NGO in Germany, a non-governmental organization, all of a sudden got their status recognized once again in Germany. And we were making strides because we were also talking to several Germans in Berlin and elsewhere who had been targeted by this organization. Under the laws and the constitution, basic law of Germany, organizations such as the Hyphen Baha'i organization that are totalitarian in every conceivable way are considered illegal. This is why Nazi organizations are illegal, why Stalinist parties are illegal in Germany. And had we attained the goal, then there would have been an inquiry in Germany, very similar to the inquiry that was triggered by Francesco Ficicchia. And without a question, if Roya had lived and if we had pursued that angle, the Baha'is today would have found themselves in a far worse situation in Germany than they found themselves in 1982. Yet, they continue this kind of behavior. They prove the contention of people like Francesco Ficcica and myself correct. And given their incessant attacking, their incessant, some of this trolling, as Stephen Bayer said, is on an unbelievable level. They prove who was behind the murder of my wife. And I have continually been in touch with the German authorities about this, so that there is a evidentiary, the evidence is there, that the circumstantial evidence is of such scope that no court can refuse to at least look upon this angle. If, inshallah, one day we get the final lead as to who were the people who were actually executing this heinous act. But like I said, I have no doubt in my mind that these people were behind it. Yes, certainly the far right and the Duganists were there as well, but the Baha'is, in the words of my friend Majid Ziya'i, were in the driver's seat of the assassination, as it were. ماشین ترور رو احبا کرایه کردن. The vehicle for the assassination was rented by the Baha'is. This is the words of my friend Majid Ziya'i. Mm-hmm. So, and what is even more suspicious is that Facebook would take this kind of decision when I'm trying to promote Roya, mm-hmm. right? And this also is another tale of the rooster, showing that there's something that these people themselves, these Baha'is, want to suppress about Roya, and it is, they want to suppress this because I am on public record implicating them in the demise of my wife. So if Roya comes up in the public perception of my Facebook and other people see it and ask questions, and I finger these people, yet again, these people are in the hot seat. So, but I'm not deterred. You're not deterred. These intimidation tactics will not go anywhere. The fact that my wife is a martyr, basically encourages me even more to pursue this path until victory. And even, if God, God forbid something were happening to me, I have raised my daughter in such a way that she knows the truth, and then she will pursue this angle herself after I'm gone. And I have put enough of this information out there that other people will help her. But the truth is that despite your defamations and whatnot, we will prevail eventually. Whether we live to see it or not, it doesn't even matter. But we will prevail. The truth will prevail. You people will fall. You are liars. You are shayateen, as was your founder, as was your leaders, has been every single one of these people. You are a reflection of these shaitanic narcissists and highway robbers that have misled so many thousands and destroyed so many lives, all so that they could, basically sit on a throne, on a worldly throne of glory. La'natullah alayhim kulluhum ajma'in. The curses of God upon all of them together.
I agree, absolutely. And, it's like what you said in the Islamic Theurgy when you were mentioning the names of God, that he is the one that will deliver the justice. No one gets away with anything. In this life, Sheikh, I've seen it. Those that have done people dirty, those that have plotted against others, dug holes for others. There was the aspect of time. I mean, it didn't come back around to them right away, but one day it did come back to them. So that the eye of God, no one gets away with anything. I've seen it time and time again. Roya soul, rest in peace, and the work that you're doing to give justice to her, on top of how you're raising Nuri, your daughter. Everything is going to align perfectly, and I could see it in my heart that it's all going to fall in place perfectly at the right time, at the right place. And the teachings of the Bab will stay alive, the Bayān will stay alive, the justice for your wife will come. So, and your work is out there. It's archived everywhere on the internet. So those that are willing to seek the truth, they're going to find it. And they have, like with the many people that have contacted me expressing support for you, those that have contacted yourself, expressing the great information and knowledge you have put out there. So it's like what you told me one time, is that when you stand for the path of the Nur, do not be deterred by the darkness or the enemies, because Allah is behind you. And no, it's just like Musa alayhi salam when he was crossing the sea. Allah opened the whole sea and drowned the whole Pharaoh's army behind him.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is. We have to put our trust in the Creator, knowing that even if we're dealing with these different entities and groups, and even when they're hiding behind the facade that we love everyone and equality and all that stuff, truth does come out, and the justice giver, he does give
Is
justice.
Allah Ta'ala, subhanahu wa ta'ala. I should mention this, right? I came out of these people. I was born into a Baha'i family
Mhm.
of a couple of generations, right? And just like Musa alayhi salam was a prince of Egypt,
Sure.
just like Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was a member of the Quraysh. I came out of these Baha'is, and this is what they do to me. Imagine if, God forbid, if one day these people were to take political power, what would they do to non-Baha'is who dissented against their tyrannical rule?
Exactly.
Right?
And
If they could-
you know what really hurts me, Sheikh, is when I see some of these people who have been expelled by the Baha'i organization for their stance and who they are, yet they have this Stockholm syndrome where they're defending the Baha'is when they have nothing to do with it anymore. And the Baha'is who are promising this equality and love for all, and they're expelling people over this, and this, while you pointed out all of the teachings of the Bayān, which accepts all those people, yet they're standing against the Bayān. I don't get it.
I get it, and it took me a while to get it many years ago, but I got it. The reason is both disturbing but also liberating and true, and that is that organizations such as the Baha'is, right, engage in a form of subtle black sorcery, and so people become beholden to things, inconspicuous things, but they become beholden to this on the emotional level, and so they are never quite let go. Like I've mentioned both with you and also with the podcast that Keyvan, Yahya'i and I have made, the ex-Baha'is are not anti-Baha'is. The ex-Baha'is are not a post-Baha'i. The ex-Baha'is are in fact a continuation of this whole racket. When an ex-Baha'i comes to you, starts to threaten you in the name of the Baha'is, about me and our podcast and what we're saying, what does that tell you about what the ex-Baha'is are? These people are not away from this. That's black sorcery. That black sorcery abides in them. It adds them by the forelock. That waswasa, that evil whisper is fully present and alive within them. And as far as I'm concerned, and the Bayanis are concerned, that waswasa and shaitan is none other than the founder of their creed. And I find it very interesting. I don't care if anybody disagrees with me and wants to call me hateful. I consider that man to be a pretender, a false idol, a taghut. Period. They want to take me to court. I'm happy to go to court. And I will say this in the courtroom, that Mīrzā Yaḥyā Nūrī Ṣubḥ-i-Azal was the taghut. And you shall know them by their fruits. Look at the fruits of these people over the last 150 years. Trails of broken lives. Destruction of entire countries. They have been, imperial powers behind them, who have, destroyed so many and unleashed so many rivers of blood. This is all you people have to, this is your report card. It doesn't matter if you have constructed these fancy megalomaniacal buildings in Haifa, Israel, or these silly looking temples in Delhi, where the outside is all, flourishing. But then when you go into the inside, the interior of these buildings, that is completely hollow, which is a complete reflection of what these people themselves are. All ostentation and show on the outside, nothing to show for it on the inside. This is the reality of the shaitan. This is the egregore. This is the sorcerer. These people have now broken away from the sorcery of Mīrzā Yaḥyā Ali Nūrī. He was a black sorcerer. So if you want to be free from the egregore of this sorcery, you have to break completely from it. I am not inviting you to become a Bayani, because being a Bayani requires a initiatic depth that most contemporary humans do not have. And it also requires a level of self-sacrifice that most human beings don't have, because it requires a level of inner fortitude that unfortunately our times does not cultivate in most people. So when you walk into this path in the manner that I have walked into this path, you will be tested to the limits of your endurance, and beyond that, to the breaking point. If you can hack it, come. If you can't, I could stay where you are, but don't oppose if you really surface things, right? These people have a lot to answer for. Why have they suppressed the Bāb? Why have they not translated, the works of the Bāb in completion, even though they claim to have the largest library of the writings of the Bāb in their personal possession? Why are they not doing that? Why do they need to attack people like me? If they are such a powerful corporate organization on Mount Carmel, then who am I to be telling them otherwise? But obviously, despite what they say, I am a threat to them. Mm-hmm. That means that there are people listening and that I am having influence over the course of events. That there are people who are thinking that this little flicker, there is a glitch in the matrix, as it were. That when I speak and I speak about the Bāb and I present these teachings of the Bāb, that there is a glitch in the matrix, and that these archons, the universal house of injustice, do not have a complete hold over their own flock. They're afraid, these CEOs of that business, of the business eventually being pushed out of business altogether, right? But this is where this humanity is, and they are one of manifold examples of the fraud that is being perpetrated on humanity. I'm not saying the Baha'is are the sole perpetrators of it. In my opinion, they're at the top of the hierarchy of the perpetrators of the world, but they're not the only ones. There are many, many more. And we as a human race, as the Khulafa Allah, per the Quran, the Caliph of God on earth that we are supposed to be, right, can only attain that position as the caretakers of the proper caretakers of this world, when we push aside all of these forces completely. When, like one of your recent guests said, very apropos, I forget his name, that the biggest problem that we have in the world today is corruption. That unless this issue of corruption is confronted, we are not going to move a millimeter. And this brother is hit a bullseye. That is the bottom line. And corruption has taken hold on such a level globally throughout this planet, that people no longer see what is the uncorrupt, or they see the uncorrupt and the true as the corrupt, and look at the corrupt as being the true, right? And this is a problem. That means that the mass of humanity is veiled from their birthright, from their spiritual birthright that the good Lord has put them on this world to fulfill, that they are squandering this thing that they have come into the world to fulfill. And this in itself, one has to have, it's dismaying that, you have the creation of the Godhead, the human being, who is created according to both hadith and the Quran, ala ahsan al-taqweem, upon the best of statures, right? Squandering that. For what? For lies, for untruth, for the darkness. Why? Because they are so hooked to this egregore of their collective identity about who they are. And just like Iblis refused to bow to Adam as they are commanded by the Lord of the universe. And this is what we need to overcome as a human race. The theories and narratives and all of this sort of thing is in a way secondary. My challenge and my journey has been, as the Lord of the universe has determined, to confront these organizations. Other people have other ones that they need to confront. But this identity and identitarianism of any shape or form, where then this identity in itself becomes a crutch, is the thing that is destroying you, is the thing that is pulling you into hell with every passing day, right? It is good to have a healthy identity, provided that this healthy identity is in an ever process of expanding evolutionary within itself and beyond itself, right? That it is helping society to evolve for the better, towards balance, towards equity, towards justice, towards harmony. None of this is going on. The Baha'is haven't established this, despite all of their pretensions and claims and platitudes and fancy words and jargon. They haven't done any of this anytime, and so the Bāb is still here, and the Bāb had a lot to say. Certainly, yes, there are certain things that we have to implement about the teachings of the Bayān based on the contingencies of the time. Just as Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salam says in the Natural Balagha, raise your children according to the contingencies of the time. Yes, we need to do that. But the fact is that the Bāb has a lot to say, both about the mysteries of the spirit and also what ails us as a humanity. as I keep going back to this ordinance of the Bayān, of the ninth Wahid, the 11th gate, do not buy and sell the four elements. In this very short phrase and this command of the teachings of the Bayān, there is the solution to the environmental problem, right? That with each day is expanding into a malignant form that is going to kill everybody, every man, woman, and child, and animal. And there is blame for this if we do not take these things seriously, because not only are we responsible for each other, but we are also irresponsible to take care of the earth and the other creatures upon it who have not done anything, who have not committed any crime, who have not perpetrated anything. They have lived according to their nature, and we have destroyed their habitat, we have destroyed their world, we have destroyed what they are. This is a sin. People don't realize this. That yes, these are the sorts of things that pull people in the afterlife. It pulls them into the hell realms, right? And yes, in the Bayān, we believe in hell. Hell exists, right? What more can one say? That these people need to wake up. So instead of holding so tightly these Baha'is to their identity and their false narrative and this bullshit claim that this individual that approached you, who also on his own wall says that he's trying to protect the Baha'is of Iran. The Baha'is of Iran need no protection at all. The Baha'is of Iran are quite affluent, as I have mentioned again and again, and as I saw with my own eyes, as my wife saw with her own eyes. The Baha'is of Iran are living well. They are, the people who are really being harassed in Iran today are not the Baha'is. The people who are really being harassed by the system in Iran are environmental activists. There are more environmental activists in Iran, in the prisons of the Islamic Republic of Iran, than anybody. Yet we barely ever hear about this. I mean, I follow it, I talk to people, but never. So these organizations like Iran Wire, that is completely hooked up to the Baha'i machinery, who are constantly churning out this news about Baha'i this, Baha'i that in Iran, talk about the environmental activists. These people who want to stop the juggernaut of this destructive policies of capitalism that are in Iran itself, despite all of its pretensions to this, that, and the other thing. Capitalism of the worst neoliberal form exists in Iran today. The system is doing nothing about it. Nothing about it. There are entire areas of Iran that used to be agricultural breadbaskets, even up to 30 years ago, that are completely parched dry. Nothing grows there anymore. All of the wildlife has died out, right? That is ecocide. And it's not the ecocide that is coming from the West. It is the ecocide that is being perpetrated by the system in Iran itself. And eventually this system will go. But what they leave after they're gone is a Iran that is completely environmentally devastated, let alone socially and psychically devastated. Yet we don't hear anything about this from these people. It's all about them. And that's why I say the Baha'is collectively are narcissists, because they can only see the world through the prism of their own self-interest. And this makes them Iblisian. It makes them the counter powers of darkness from where I've come.
Well, I mean, it's one of those podcasts, right, where we titled Agents of the Kings of Edom and the Cultists of the Kings of Edom. That's what it is. It's Edomites, it's the agents of chaos. And we have all of this information about Iran being suppressed and all of the great things that you find. Even so many of the tourists, Sheikh, I've seen who go to Iran and they say all the lies that the Western world told us about Iran. Nothing is true. The nice people, good food, everything is here. They're facing the same issues just like anybody else, but why is their voice not being heard? Like the environmentalist factor, preserving Persian architecture, Persian history, and that's basically the cradle of civilization if you look at
I tell you what, there's a fallacy, and this is very subtle issue, but it's something that people need to think about. When we, anywhere in the world, think about countries, we always immediately identify with the governments.
Yes.
Those countries are the governments. So the systems of those countries represent those countries. And this is where the fallacy begins. No country is its government. No country is its system. Every country is its people, the people on the ground, right? And that is why the people of Iran are facing the same concerns and the same challenges as anybody else around the world, right? The people of Iran are not the government. The people of Iran are not the Islamic Republic. The people of Iran are the people of Iran.
That's right.
Right? When we begin to think in those terms, right, then that is the process where we begin to delegitimize the reality of governments, because these governments are manifestations of a collective egregore, indeed. But those governments in themselves represent everything that is wrong, not everything that is right. This goes also for the United States. It goes for everywhere throughout the West and elsewhere. Because just as the great French social theorist Baron de Montesquieu said, every people on earth are a reflection on one level of the governments that rule over them. But on another level, that itself is also a fallacy. Not every system or every government is the people itself. And in the case of Iran, as the last 40 years have shown, the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran in no way, shape, or form represents the totality of the Iranian people. It only represents its own very small constituency who's holding on to power for dear life.
That is absolutely correct. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because most people don't realize. I remember one time, Sheikh, I was in 10th grade in high school, and they had these people from the Secret Service that came to our school. And the first thing they show us is a picture of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. And they tell us, do you know who this is? And I just felt so disgusted that you have a bunch of high school kids who don't know anything about life. They don't have any life experience. And the first thing you come to do is spread hatred. Is who is this person? And it has a Middle Eastern appearance, and you making all the Middle Eastern kids feel isolated, and the Persian kids feel isolated. And one of my best friends who I went to high school with, he's also a Persian, and whom I stay in contact with. And we were just sitting there like, what was the point of them doing this? Like, why don't talk about the good things of Iran or Persia? First thing they do is point out the aspect of hatred and division. And you pointed this out perfectly. Is the first thing that people imagine. That's the example that they used. So when they think of Iran, they'll think of that individual. So that's the programming that they do. And I'm glad you pointed that fallacy out.
Look, I have a problem with Zionism. I have a problem with the government of Israel. But I have more Jewish Israeli friends and Jewish friends than I can count.
Definitely.
And some of these brothers were some of the only people that actually showed up, one of them especially, after the passing of Roya to help Nūrī Ṣubḥ-i-Azal.
Yeah.
So, it's not about no single individual is a government, or even a group of people are not the government.
Yes.
Right? On the ground. Now, it's interesting you mentioned Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, because I want to drop this bombshell now. Back in the zeros, when Mahmoud Ahmadinejad became the president of the Islamic Republic of Iran, there were some rumors that he came from a Jewish background. That is absolutely false. He doesn't. In fact, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad's father was a Baha'i convert to Islam, coming from the village of Sangassar. So Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, interesting enough, is actually a Baha'izadeh, someone who was born from Baha'i father.
I never knew that.
The scholar Abdullah Shahbazi was a friend of mine. He's now living in the United States in exile. He used to be a leading researcher for the Iranian Ministry of Intelligence, and then fell afoul of the system, and as many of people have with the system in Iran. He showed me all the documentation that, yes, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is coming from a Baha'i family. So
I mean, that's I never knew that, because all of this time they show you something else, and they build some other image in your mind, so people have this hatred towards Persian people and Iran and all of this stuff. But in reality, like with what you pointed out, is totally something else. And it's the teachings that you have presented are absolutely fascinating, especially with the Islamic Theurgy, the writings of the Bāb, and the teachings of the Bayān, which are suppressed. And even this revelation about Ahmadinejad, which I never knew. And I encourage people, please, I cannot stress this enough. Please listen to parts 1 through 10, including this one, more than once if you have to. And it's archived on both of our channels. And please support Roya's memory, rest in peace, with the GoFundMe, if you're capable to do so, and support Sheikh Wahid Azal and all of his works and the links that he has provided in further reference for this podcast. So please, Sheikh, any other thoughts or remarks you would like to share?
Well, I mean, we don't want to bore people to death. So, I mean, I can keep talking and talking, as you know, but I think we should leave it here for this number 10, because we covered quite a lot of ground. But one thing that was demonstrated was the Bāb's theurgy. I really wanted to get that in there. because theurgy essentially revolves around the divine names. And we with the Bab, we have this Kitab Asma'i Kulli Shay, the book of the names of all things, that is just a gem where theurgy is concerned. I mean, I have been using this and its names for years now, and it's part of my own arsenal of prayers that I invoke daily.
Yes.
And if people can benefit from this, they're welcome. I'm happy to give them what they need.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And our love to Sheikh Wahid Azal in this internal struggle against the darkness. And until next time, we join for part 11. Love to everyone and Nur alaikum.